Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing really well and welcome back to my podcast, Life of an Artrepreneur. It feels like quite a long time since I've actually sat down and filmed a podcast because I've been away in Dublin and then in Poland, and I've been scheduling my episodes a little bit more whilst I've been away. But yeah, it feels good to be properly sat down and back chatting again. Poland was amazing. If anyone hasn't been to Krakow before, definitely go. This was actually my second time. Conrad had never been before though, and we spent a few days in Zakopane, which is like a little town just outside of Krakow, maybe like an hour and a half away. Very up, like in the mountains. I think it's a bit of a ski resort, but we didn't do any skiing. It's just very Christmassy. All the houses are like pointy roofs. They kind of look like little lodges, and where we stayed was really nice as well. It was very snowy. Even when we arrived, it was snowing. So it was just, yeah, very Christmassy little getaway. However, I did start feeling a bit guilty towards the end. I thought, oh, I really need to like get on with some work, which I was trying to do in between, like when we were traveling on the bus for a while. I did a bit of editing then. I was getting back to messages. On the flight back, I did quite a bit of editing. But I feel like if you're not in a routine, it's hard for you to full on concentrate on what you're doing. You're too distracted by what's going on around you. But I did what I could. And I did actually get quite a lot of my artist vlog edited. So I didn't have much left to do when I got back, which is a good thing, I guess. So I could concentrate more on my commissions, which I still have a lot to do before Christmas. Today is actually the 2nd of December. So we're now in December. So Christmas is literally around the corner at this point. For this episode, I thought I would answer the rest of your questions that I didn't get around to answering a few weeks ago. So I put on a Q&A box on Instagram for you to leave some questions, and I answered some of them, I think 2 episodes ago. But then after I'd actually filmed the episode, there was like loads more coming through. So I screenshot them and I'm going to answer them today. I think there's quite a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, there's 10. There's 10, so I'm going to try and answer all of them. So the first one is, did you come up with the name Life of an Artrepreneur? Yeah, I feel like I had Artrepreneur, like artist and entrepreneur, in my head for ages. And I also knew that I wanted to start a podcast at some point, or start something which is a bit more like chatty, that I could chat to other artists on and use it as a bit of a platform for you to get to like know me personally a bit better as well, and talk about different topics within the art space and business space. So yeah, just thought it'd be nice to kind of combine them two as Artrepreneur. I obviously did my research and stuff beforehand to check that no other podcast was called Artrepreneur or anything like that. I think there was one that was Artpreneur, but I just thought Artrepreneur sounds a lot better, so I don't know why they didn't use that. But yeah, Life of an Artrepreneur is what we went with, and I'm pretty happy with the name, to be honest. So the second question is, when starting a business, how do you know what to prioritise? What do you prioritise first? I think when starting any business, you need to make a list of everything that you need to do, and then obviously order that list into priorities. I think coming up with a name and then just going with that name for your social media handles is probably step one. You can always change that, but I think just having that base where you can start posting things is a good start. Having a logo and sort of visualizing what all of your like packaging and branding is basically gonna sort of look like. Think about colors. Think about a website. It's not necessarily something that you should prioritize first, but I think just having all of that information about what your business is, what you're all about, say if you're an artist, a wildlife artist, pet portrait artist, having all of that information in one place where people can go to so people can start seeing what you're all about, that definitely helps. And to be honest, my first website, I probably only made sort of 2.5 years into actually doing all this, like really, really early on. And it was very, very basic, like really basic. I think it literally had 2 pages, so much text, not enough images. But I think naturally as your business develops and the more comfortable you feel with using like website builders like Wix, you can develop your website into exactly how you want it to look. And nowadays they've got so many templates and stuff that you can use and just literally swap out the pictures to the pictures that you want to use. It's all laid out nicely for you, and you can just tweak little bits. It just makes life so much easier and it's quicker to do. Or you could literally pay someone to do it. It'd save you so much time. But even then, you're still going to have to tell them exactly what you want, how you want things to look. And I think when you do it yourself, what you think might look good in your head. You probably might change your mind if you're doing it yourself and think, oh, maybe that doesn't look right, and you're going to change it to this. So yeah, definitely a website is something that should be a priority, but not number one. I think all the little things like name, logo, just visualizing what you want out of your business, how it's going to look for you is the main thing. You definitely want to prioritize social media. As soon as you start posting stuff, you're going to reach an audience, you're going to get that engagement, and it might start off really small, but it will start to develop. So really pay attention to what you're posting, the quality of it. Make sure you're recording little bits of your work. And I think if you're an artist, you want to make sure that the next drawing that you do is better than the one previously. And I think making sure that your drawing skills are developing, if you're an artist and you've got an art business, is really important. Like spending time learning little bits of how you can improve will have an impact on everything else, because if the quality of your work is better, more people will want commissions. So yeah, I think if you wanted to start a pet portrait business tomorrow and you had you could draw but you had no idea, I think I'd start by setting up your social media, thinking about names, and also I'd probably take time, like a few days, getting a bit of a setup in your studio or the space that you work in, and getting someone to take some really, really good quality photos, like literally on your phone. Like phone quality cameras these days are really good, if not better than some cameras. But then you can use them for social media, for your profile pictures, to put on your website. It just gives you a bit more professionalism, I think, rather than rushing through everything at once. So make a list of everything, prioritize some of the things I've spoken about. Definitely take your time with it, think things through, don't rush through anything, because you'll always just have to come back and redo those little bits again. And yeah, just enjoy the whole entire process of it. I feel like that's actually the most fun part of having a business, because you can be so creative. And when you first order like the first bit of professional packaging with like your stickers with your logo on and stuff like that, it's really exciting. You think, oh, everything's actually coming together now. And obviously that does develop over the years. You might change things, but I think initially when you start getting everything together, it is quite an exciting part of starting your own business. See what other artists are doing, and ask people for advice. People are always willing to help, especially in like the art community space, and my DMs are always open. So if you want to message me about anything, feel free to do so, although it might take me a while to get back to you at the minute because I am pretty swamped with things. The third question is, would you recommend taking business classes? Did you take them? I feel like these are quite businessy related questions. I did business A-level at college. I always found business quite interesting, but there was definitely topics within that I found way more interesting than others. I think business overall covers such a huge range of things. You'll naturally be better at some than others. I find some parts of it to be really, really boring, and I find other parts of it, like the branding and the marketing side of things, to be really interesting. So it just depends, but I think having an overall general idea on all these different topics definitely helps, because then you can incorporate that into whatever you're doing. So yeah, I did business A-level, and I've been to like talks, Stephen Bartlett, who's like a dragon on Dragon's Den, and he's got the podcast Diary of a CEO. I went to see Diary of a CEO live. I think very early on he's sort of swayed away from this a little bit now, but he basically used to have really in-depth chats with like really successful big business owners, which I found really interesting to like listen to their side of things and how they've got to where they've got to, and the whole journey and the obstacles they've had to face. And I find that kind of interesting. So we went to see that maybe like 4 years ago. Let's say 3 years ago, I hope. I feel like the years are flying by. I actually went to one of his other talks in February, which was a lot more business focused. He literally went through like how to structure an email if you're going to be sending it to someone to get an opportunity, like how you structure it, all these little bits that you need to cover. You're more likely to stand out. I don't know, there was just like loads of tips that he gave. It was ages ago now. I did actually make notes whilst I was there, but I find things like that interesting, and I always try and bring that into what I'm doing in some way, especially with the stuff that I am interested in, like the marketing and the branding side of things and like social media and stuff. So I don't think it's necessary that you have to take business classes to be able to run a business, but I think it definitely helps having some sort of general knowledge on it all. But to be honest, anything that you do struggle with, there's so much information out there on YouTube and stuff. You can probably get an understanding on something within like 20 minutes on a video. So yeah, and also I really like watching Dragon's Den and The Apprentice. Not that that's like full on business classes, but it's just interesting, isn't it? Probably more Dragon's Den than The Apprentice, because The Apprentice is obviously just like more entertainment, isn't it? But yeah, I like watching stuff like that. So the fourth question is how to find photos of wildlife that aren't copyrighted and are okay to use. So there's 3 websites that I use quite a lot for my tutorials on Patreon, because obviously I want to give reference photos that are completely copyright free so people can make prints from the work or sell the original work. So 3 websites that you want to look at is Unsplash, Pexels and Pixabay. They're probably like the main 3. There are other photo websites that you can use, but you've got to like pay for certain licenses, and it gets really confusing, especially as an artist if you know you're going to be selling prints of that particular drawing. And also there's a lot of grey areas, because being a realistic artist, it obviously looks like the picture, but if you manipulate that image and you've got your own style, I guess it's slightly different. It's not exactly the picture, but it's still just a good idea to use royalty-free, copyright-free images if you can. You'll probably find that those 3 websites, the good ones, have been used quite a lot by other artists. So any original work that I want to create for myself or to enter into competitions or exhibitions, anything like that, I use wildlife reference photos for artists.com. So this is, I've got it up here. This is basically what it looks like, and loads of photographers share their amazing wildlife images on there, and you can basically buy the image to use it as a reference photo for your work for literally £5. So you're giving something back to the photographer. You can obviously credit them as where you got the reference photo from. But yeah, all of these are really good as well. Completely different angles. Obviously, I don't use these reference photos for tutorials because I can't buy it and then just give it out to hundreds of people for free. Doesn't really work like that. So yeah, anything personal, original work for competitions or anything like that, I'll use wildlife reference photos for artists. It also has a frequently asked questions part of the website here, just kind of confirming what you can actually use the reference photo for, just to make it really clear. So they're the main 4 websites I'd use for photos. I also like taking my own photos as well, not like I've got a lion walking across the field, but for like British wildlife, we always have like cows and sheep in the field, and there's like an open farm called Smith Hills Farm that's not too far away from me in Bolton. Me and Shannon Mullen, another wildlife artist, we actually went there earlier this year and got loads of reference photos of like cows, sheep, horses, donkeys, goats. Like they've got everything, and you can literally get really close to them as well. So for reference photos, it's really good, and that's completely your own photo then. So it just makes it a bit more original when you create a piece of work. I also have worked with photographers in the past as well. If you stumble across a photo on Instagram, just because they've posted it doesn't mean that it's yours to use. So I'd always, if you do like a photo, maybe message the photographer saying your intentions with the photo, what you're going to be creating, whether you're going to be making prints, and basically give them your terms. They might say no, they might say yes, but make sure you've definitely got permission from the photographer before you use it as your reference photo. The 5th question from Cindy Pencil Art is, do you ever stare at a commissioned piece, get frustrated and say, how am I supposed to do this? Yes, all the time, especially if the photo isn't the best. I feel like I've got better at working from photos that are, you know, not the best quality, because obviously not everyone has really good quality photos, especially if the pet has sadly passed away. They might have limited reference photos for me to work from. But I've definitely got better at kind of pulling out the details that you can't really see. But I feel like that process makes the whole process a bit longer, if you know what I mean. I think also if I'm really challenging myself and drawing something that I've never drawn before, and it's a really complex reference photo that I'm working from, I do think, how am I going to do this? This lion cub is actually a really good example of this that I did for Patreon a couple of months ago. So this reference photo I absolutely loved because the lighting is just amazing. I knew that I could do all of the fur well, because obviously I draw fur pretty much every day. I've been practicing using pan pastels and creating like a blurry background, so I knew that I could probably do that all right. But I was dreading doing the grass at the bottom because I've never really drawn a texture like this before. It was so complicated with all of the intertwining pieces of grass, and there's so much going on, everything's overlapping, it's all different colours. You want to create depth but make it look realistic at the same time, but not kind of overcomplicate it. And it was even more of a challenge because I had to literally explain every step of the process whilst I was figuring out how to do it myself, because it was a tutorial. So I think that was probably the most challenging drawing part that I've actually done this year, but I am happy with how it turned out. But I think that's completely normal, thinking, how am I supposed to do this, especially when it's something that you've not drawn before, or a fur texture that you find challenging, or maybe a dog breed that you've not had much practice drawing. And with anything, you want to keep the whole process the same. So start with your light colours, your base layers, and just gradually build everything up from there, and do like one layer at a time, and then sort of judge how it's going. So a reference photo might look scary and daunting to work from, but I think if you approach it in the same way as your other portraits, you should be fine. So the next question, I think this is question 6 from LilyJ2374. Have you ever felt like your work isn't good enough? If so, how do you get past that? Definitely. I feel like everyone has that self-doubt of thinking that the work isn't good enough, like at some point, if not multiple times. I definitely felt like that in uni more than anything, because they were just constantly trying to steer me away from what I enjoyed. And I think there's a big thing with artists, like when you're growing up as well, if you get a good reaction from people around you once you've drawn something, that tends to be what you kind of lean in towards. I mean, for most people, I think that would be the case. So I guess that might be one reason why I enjoyed the realistic aspect of art, but also I enjoyed the whole process of building up every single tiny detail. Whereas in uni, they kind of hated that. And a piece of work that would have got me a really good reaction in like college, in uni, it kind of got the opposite. They were like, well, why are you doing it realistically? Why don't you put one eye here, one nose up here? It's just, you just naturally kind of gravitate towards a style of art. It kind of develops. And I think if you naturally keep going back to that style of art, you know that, you know, that's what you enjoy. And just because other people might not like it doesn't mean you should stop doing it. That's kind of what I did anyway throughout uni. I was still doing my pet portrait commissions after uni on the side. But in uni, I was painting realistic dogs, but with like some big concepts that I wasn't really that interested in, just to kind of get the grades, if you will. I also think it's difficult to avoid kind of comparing yourself to other artists sometimes. Like some of the artists I look up to, like Carla Grace, she doesn't do colour pencils, she does oil paintings and acrylic paintings, but they're absolutely insane, like so realistic. She comes up with all of the compositions by herself. She thinks of the lighting, how it's all going to look, and I think it's really clever. And I think not necessarily a comparison, but it makes you think about what you're doing and maybe how you could develop your work even more to get a step further from what you're doing, because you don't want to be doing the same thing year in, year out. I think you need to have that creativity, and you need to do something which develops your work. You need to be creative and experiment and try different things that develops your work but still has your style. Next year, I definitely want to use reference photos in a slightly different way, where I'm kind of using multiple and combining them and developing it into more of a composition that's more of like my own, rather than just using a reference photo and then drawing that reference photo. I kind of want to develop it a little bit more. Just went off on a big tangent then. What's the actual question? Have you ever felt like your work isn't good enough? If so, how do you get past that? So yeah, I think take advice from artists, but also everyone has their own opinion and art is subjective, so remember that. And just have confidence in whatever style or subject it is that you're interested in and gravitating towards. Try not to compare yourself to others, because your work will naturally develop, and as long as you're focusing on what you're enjoying and you're getting better and better with each drawing, then you'll naturally kind of build up that confidence in yourself. The next question from Becca Seddon is, how do you plan / organise your Instagram content? Really struggling to post regularly. I think I'm actually struggling to post regularly at the minute because I'm just so commission focused. I'm obviously documenting what I'm doing and recording little clips throughout, sending them all to Conrad so he can edit them. But in terms of actually posting, like he's sending me them, I've just not had time to post them. But recently I figured out on Instagram, it's probably been there for ages and I've just not even seen it, but you can actually schedule content on Instagram, like through Instagram. which I did when I was away in Poland, which was quite good because I posted it at 6 o'clock, like bang on the prime time. I think if you've got a little bit of time, maybe schedule a few at once over the next few days, and then you can spend your time thinking about other things, and then it's posting without you even thinking about it. I always try and post around 6 p.m. just because I think they do a lot better than when I post at any other time in the day. But other than that, I don't really have like any set days that I post, and I'm not really that consistent with posting like 3 or 4 times a week. I think I'm quite good on my stories, but in terms of actually posting constantly, it's a bit more irregular and random. Sometimes I'm proper into it, and sometimes it kind of drops off a little bit depending on how busy I am. If you are struggling to organise your social media content and actually post, I think you need to remind yourself the advantages of posting on social media and how much engagement you can get and how many people you can reach. Just because one reel hasn't done very well doesn't mean the next one isn't going to do really well and blow up and bring so many more people to your socials. You just never know. It's just very up and down. So yeah, try and take some time out of your day to maybe make the reels and edit them, or make a folder which is like all of the images or the videos that you want to post, and then maybe use that schedule feature on Instagram so you can actually just, you know, plan them all out. Every few days you've got one scheduled, and then you don't have to think about it then. The next question is, how do you manage around Christmas with it being such a busy time? I feel like this year I've really been feeling overwhelmed with everything. I think because of Dublin and because of Poland, which were 2 holidays in November that is not great timing. I'm now really, really trying to catch up. But I had quite a lot of like social plans in November as well. I've tried to get all of that out of the way. And then December, I've literally got someone's birthday and then no other plans until right near Christmas. So I can spend most of my weekends sort of bashing out work because time is of the essence now. I guess I use my weekly planner as well. I can organise every single day, every single week. I'm definitely one of them people that has to write things down rather than doing it digitally because I just get distracted on my phone. So having it next to me and then I can kind of scribble out what I've done as and when I've done it definitely helps me stay on track with things. But yeah, Christmas and the run up to Christmas is always so busy, especially for artists. Like, it's just 24/7 non-stop until you've sent that last commission or sent out that last order. It's just a lot. And I feel like for me at the minute, I'm constantly packaging and my back is in bits. It'd be good if I had like a packing station at some point in a future studio, because I hate taking everything off my desk when it's all set up with a commission and I've got all my pencils laid out. I hate taking everything off to then put all my packaging stuff on there and package, which I probably should do, but it's just more convenient for me to just do it on the floor. But it doesn't really do me any good when I'm doing like 3 at once or packaging up loads of orders. I feel like really stiff when I get back up. I also think try your best not to burn yourself out. I definitely work to like maximum capacity until I'm literally about to fall asleep most days, which is probably not great. I'm also trying to avoid all illnesses and like colds and everything up until after Christmas, because I also don't want that to kind of knock me back either. I think just do your best to be organised, plan your days with to-do lists, stick to them as best you can. Work really hard, but try not to burn yourself out. And you're only human. If you could clone yourself and get everything done a lot quicker, that would be great, but we can't do that. So yeah, you can only do the best you can. So the 9th question, I've just Googled it because it's in French and it literally says, are you French? So no, I'm not. So the last question from Painting Memories is, what are your 2024 highlights? This is such a good question to end on. I feel like this year has been such a good year. I've done loads of travelling. I feel like I've produced some of my best work, like the flamingo and that lion cub that I've just shown you. I love those 2 pieces. I've had some amazing opportunities this year, some of which are happening next year. I organised and put on my own workshop this year, which has been really good, which is something that I want to carry on doing next year as well. I went on a cruise in summer. It was the Virgin Voyager cruise. With 2 of my best friends, Emma and Eleanor, which I have a vlog on YouTube about if you want to watch that. We're literally vlogging the whole trip. But that was amazing. It went to Barcelona, Palma, Cannes, Marseille, Ibiza, and we had like a few days at sea as well. Yeah, I feel like that's definitely a holiday that we'll all remember. It was just amazing. The food, the traveling, just like waking up in a different place and then going out to explore it was really, really good. And I'd never been on a cruise before, so that was my first experience, which was really good. I obviously loved the Poland trip that I've just been on with Conrad, like really nice and Christmassy. I think being part of the Green and Stone summer exhibition again was amazing, as well as the Explorers Against Extinction Sketch for Survival exhibition, and being able to support the whole like conservation project with my artwork was amazing. I'm trying to think what else I've done this year. There's been so much I can't remember it. Obviously Dublin was really good. I went to Crete earlier in the summer, which was really nice. Again, I have a vlog on that on my YouTube. What else? I feel like January and February, March is just a distant memory, but also it doesn't feel like that long ago either. But yeah, I feel like I've just done a lot this year. I've started this podcast this year, which has been a massive thing. I think I started it in May. I could be wrong. But I've literally, since starting it, given you an episode every single week, which I've not yet broken. I'm going to try and keep that up. But yeah, I've absolutely loved doing this and just like chatting to other artists. I've also made really good friends with 2 other artists this year as well. Obviously Shannon Mullen and Charmaine Di Rosario Art on Instagram, who she was my first ever Patreon like years ago, and she actually moved to Manchester earlier this year, so we met up, and now she's moved to London. But every time I go to London pretty much we meet up. So yeah, I feel like I've just had really good opportunities. I've made friends with more people in the art world. I really like the work that I've produced this year, and I've done a lot of travelling. So I think it's been overall a really good year. There's been too many highlights really to think of off the top of my head, but I think they're the main ones that I've mentioned. I also had a feature in the Artists and Illustrators magazine, which also was amazing. I've just remembered that because I looked down there and there it is under my studio desk. But yeah, I've done a lot and I'm excited to see what next year brings as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode and listening to me waffle for I don't even know how long this has been, answering some of your questions. Hopefully I've given you some good answers to them. If you've been watching on YouTube, then please give it a like and subscribe to my channel to see more art related content and upcoming episodes. And if you've been listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I'd love it if you could leave a 5-star review, comment, share, everything helps. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I'll be back next week with a brand new episode, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of your week. Stay organised on the run up to Christmas, don't be too stressed, and yeah, you'll be absolutely fine.